West Africa Democracy Radio.
94.9
FM Dakar.
WADR, promoting dialogue.
It's 6 o'clock in Dakar. Good evening and welcome to Newslink and West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting on 94.9 FM and around the world at wadr.org. First, our top stories. Jamaica calls for value of resistance as Senegal marks 81 years since Charoy massacre.
Pour que cette vérité soit visible, pour qu'elle habite.
To make this truth visible, to ensure that it inhabits our space as much as our consciousness, a memorial to the Charoy massacre will be erected.
ECOWAS opens talks with Guinea-Bissau junta to restore democratic governance. In Ghana, candidates say WAEC exam questions exceeded their expectations despite adequate preparation.
When the day for the exam arrived and we sat for the exam, none of the topics we were given appeared on the question paper.
A Liberia conference, digital gender-based violence crisis through 16 days of activism. Please stay tuned for details of these stories and more.
West Africa Democracy Radio. It's you speaking.
My name is Sankule Janko. I'd like to thank you for joining our broadcast this evening. We begin at home here in Senegal, where today memory and history came together in a powerful way as the nation marked 81 years since the Charoy massacre, one of the darkest and most painful chapters in Africa's colonial past. Standing on the very soil where hundreds of African soldiers were killed after returning from World War II, President Bassirou Diomaye Faye called on the country to teach younger generations the true story of Charoy, not just as an event, but as a symbol of resistance, dignity, and Pan-African unity. Imo Edit reports.
Senegal's President Bassirou Diomaye Faye at the ceremony underscored the importance of teaching younger generations the value of resistance and helping them understand the mechanisms of colonial domination that led to the Charoy massacre of December 1, 1944. Speaking at the 81st anniversary commemoration in Charoy, President Faye said children must learn the events, the actors, and the full story of the massacre. He stressed that understanding this history is essential to building national consciousness, citizenship, and a strong Pan-African identity. He says,
Pour que cette vérité soit visible, pour qu'elle habite.
To make this truth visible, to ensure that it inhabits our space as much as our consciousness, a memorial to the Charoy massacre will be erected between the camp and the cemetery, bringing together these two places of truth. This memorial would not be a simple stone monument. It will form the heart of a vast memorial complex comprising an esplanade for commemorations, educational and cultural spaces dedicated to young people, and residences to welcome researchers from around the world who come to work on colonial history and memories. The memorial will make Charoy a living place of remembrance, a beacon of historical truth, and a citadel of knowledge for future generations.
Une citadelle de savoir pour les générations futures.
Gambian President Adama Barrow attended the event along with representatives of several African countries whose soldiers serve as riflemen also took the podium to reflect on the massacre.
It is regrettable that exactly 81 years ago today, the sacred blood of Africa's sons was mercilessly shed on this very soil. The cries of unarmed heroes who had traveled across oceans were silenced by the very forces they had served with courage and dignity. Today, Africa mourns and condemns the event of that gloomy day.
Recall the white paper on the Charoy massacre submitted to Senegalese President Diomaye Faye on October 16 underlines the premeditated nature of the killing and the attitude of the French authorities of camouflage. These riflemen came from the colonies of Côte d'Ivoire, Dahomey, present-day Benin, Gabon, Upper Volta, present-day Burkina Faso, Ubangui-Chari, present-day Chad, and Central African Republic, Senegal, Sudan, present-day Mali, Niger, and Togo.
Imo Edet filed that report. We head now to Guinea-Bissau, where the Economic Community of West African States, ECOWAS, is holding discussions with Guinea-Bissau's military junta aimed at restoring constitutional order following the November 26 coup. Julius Maada, the president of Sierra Leone and current chairman of ECOWAS, arrived in Bissau today for the emergency mission along. He is being accompanied by President of the ECOWAS Commission, Dr. Omar Aliou Toure. Augustine Colley has more in this report.
This high-level visit followed the immediate suspension of Guinea-Bissau from all AU and ECOWAS decision-making bodies after the military takeover. Guinea-Bissau's military rulers also banned protests and strike as they tightened control amid the high-level visit by the regional bloc in Bissau. The military government announced late on Sunday that all demonstrations, strikes and activities regarded as threats to peace and stability were prohibited. ECOWAS is demanding the immediate restoration of constitutional order and the proclamation of the results of the November 23 presidential election. While USTED President Umaru Sissoco Embalo is currently in Brazzaville, several political figures remain in detention. Meanwhile, Nigerian President Bola Tinubu has approved the provision of protection for opposition Fernando Diaz da Costa in the premises of the Nigerian embassy in Guinea-Bissau. An official statement from Nigeria's Ministry of Foreign Affairs states that the decision is a proactive measure to ensure the safety for the opposition candidate in response to imminent threat on his life. The Nigerian Ministry of Foreign Affairs also requests ECOWAS Stabilization Support Mission to provide protection and security for Fernando Diaz while in the premises of the Nigerian embassy. According to the statement, the move underscores Nigeria's firm commitment to safeguarding democratic aspirations and the sovereign will of Bissau Guineans.
Augustine Colley with that report. In the Ghana, the West African Examinations Council WAEC has confirmed the national education concern with the release of the provisional WAS 2025 results, revealing a worrying surge in the outright failure rate grade F9 across all four core subjects compared to the 2024 results. An analysis of the official data released show that the percentage of candidates who failed core mathematics outright grade F9 has nearly quadrupled, rising from 6.10% in 2024 to an alarming 26.77% in 2025. Similarly, the failure rate for social studies has almost tripled in a single year, from 9.55% in 2024 to 27.50% in 2025. The massive increase in F9 grades signals a dramatic downturn in fundamental knowledge among the total of 461,733 candidates who registered for the examination. The steepest increase was recorded in the core subjects that form the basis for tertiary education entry. Well, John Cappy is the Director of Public Affairs at WAEC.
First of all, let me indicate that the statistics that we have put out there just represents the results that we have published so far. There are some that have been withheld that we are investigating, and it's possible that if they are not found culpable, the percentage part could go up. But then, looking at the chief examiner's report that I have in front of me, I just want to stress the weaknesses of the candidates as was observed by the chief examiners. They indicated that the candidates showed weaknesses in the following. 1. Representing mathematical information in a diagram. 2. Solving global mathematics-related problems. 3. Constructing cumulative frequency table from given data distribution. 4. Making deductions from real-life problems. 5. Solving application problems in simple interest. 6. Translating word problems into mathematical expressions. And 7. Interpreting of results from cumulative frequency curve. So these are areas that the chief examiners have observed weaknesses in the candidate's performance. Obviously, these are not topics that are outside the syllabus, and they're not outside the test blueprint. So from the general comment that was made, the chief examiners reported that the standard of the paper compared favorably with that of the previous years.
John Kepi is the Director of Public Affairs at WIG. Meanwhile, Ghanaian students who sat for the 2025 West African Senior Secondary School Certificate Examination WAS says this year's papers were far more demanding than they expected, despite what many described as months of solid preparation. Across several examination centers, candidates reported that some questions, particularly in mathematics, integrated science, and English language, were usually complex, testing not only recall but deeper analytical skills. Others expressed concern that the structure of the papers differ from past formats they had practiced. Teachers and exam monitors, however, say the tougher questions are part of WIG's ongoing efforts to raise standards and reduce the reliance on routine past question drills. WIG is expected to release an official statement in the coming days addressing the concerns raised by candidates. Well, here are some voices of the students who pleaded for anonymity.
That was our first written paper, so there was some kind of tension and pressure when we were about to write it.
Core maths was difficult, I won't lie. We have been solving past questions, but still, the core maths, I haven't even seen it before.
So nobody really thought that like core maths questions would turn out that way in this WASI that we wrote. So the way we were actually taught was to be strategic in how to solving, diagram questions, how to be solving word problem questions and all that. So we didn't really bang much of our effort and hopes on how like word problem per se, because if I'm to remember correctly, the comments that we wrote from question 1 to question 5 was all word problem.
The topics we were given by WAEC to study for the exam. When the day for the exam arrived and we sat for the exam, none of the the topics we were given appeared on the question paper.
The WASI 2025 was quite interesting and shocking. Shocking in a way that a subject like maths per se, how really the students who wrote the exams is not how we have seen the results. Because although the maths were difficult, but we the students did something. We wrote something per se.
Also, Ghanaian students reacting to the recent maths failures in core subjects in WAS examinations.
More stories coming up on West Africa Democracy Radio. Newslink continues.
Ghana and Burkina Faso have strengthened their bilateral ties with a new roaming agreement that will significantly cut the cost of communication for citizens traveling between the two countries. The agreement was formalized in Ouagadougou during Burkina Faso's Digital Week, with Ghana participating as guest of honor. Nadidi Tete has the details of the story.
The agreement was signed between Ghana's National Communications Authority, NCA, and Burkina Faso's Autorité de Régulation des Communications Électroniques et des Postes, ARCEP. Under the arrangement, travelers will be able to make calls, send messages, and use data services at in-country rates, effectively eliminating the high roaming charges that have burdened traders, transport operators, and frequent travelers. In a statement, the National Communication Authority said the MOU strengthens long-standing collaboration between the two regulatory bodies and completes Ghana's free roaming arrangements with all its neighboring countries. NCA's Deputy Director General for Technical Operations, Suleiman Salifou, described the pact as a major step in regional digital integration, making communication more accessible and affordable for citizens. Executive Secretary of ARCEP, Patrice Compaoré, noted that subscribers from both countries will now communicate at the same rates they enjoy at home, a move he says will boost bilateral cooperation and ease cross-border exchanges. Regulators and mobile network operators from both countries will now begin the technical implementation and testing phase ahead of the full rollout in April 2026. For WADR, Nadidi Tete, Accra.
The Gambia's Center for Victims of Human Rights Violations has welcomed the arrest of Sani Manjang, a former member of the notorious Junglers squad that operated under Yahya Jammeh's regime. Manjang was reportedly apprehended over the weekend in Casamance during a joint security operation carried out by Senegalese and Gambian forces. Considered one of the most active operatives of the Junglers, he has long been accused of grave human rights abuses, including murder, enforced disappearances, and torture committed through throughout Jammeh's 22 years in power. Reacting to the arrest, Baba Hydra, himself a direct victim of the junglers and founding member of the Center for Victims of Human Rights Violations, or the authorities to move swiftly and ensure that Manjang is brought to justice without delay.
First of all, I thank the Senegalese government for allowing this task force to do the arrest with the Gambian counterparts. It shows how good the relationship is. There are a lot of rumors circulating that somehow Jammeh is linked to it, but we can't say much unless these individuals are interrogated to know more about their plans. Though we know that he has something to do with it, but we would like to know the depth, and also more about what really transpired that evening that my dad was murdered.
My sincere condolences, but as a direct victim of the alleged act perpetrated by this jungler member, what do you want from the government?
These are very brutal murderers who we cannot trust leaving them out free. So one of the important things the government should do is to make sure that these people are kept out of the public. And if it means that they have to come up with new decree to make sure that they are detained before they're in court, they should do so and make sure that they are well kept away within reach of people that can help them to escape or things like that. So we have to be very vigilant dealing with this matter.
Baba Hydra is a founding member of the Gambia Center for Victims of Human Rights Violations. You're listening to Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, right on 94.9 FM, Dakar, Senegal. Here is a reminder of our top stories. Jamaica calls for value of resistance as Senegal marks 81 years since Charoy massacre. ECOWAS opens talks with Guinea-Bissau junta restore democratic governance. In Ghana, candidates say WAEC exam questions exceeded their expectations despite adequate preparations. Still ahead, Liberia confronts digital gender-based violence crisis through 16 days of activism. We have guest interview and sports news. Please stay with us.
Fresh and breaking news all the time. Hear it first as the news breaks, only on West Africa Democracy Radio. Newslink continues.
Elsewhere in Nigeria's northeast, the military has rescued 12 teenage girls abducted by the suspected ISWAP fighters in Borno State. Military troops under the operation had in Kai carried out the mission freeing the girls who had been taken by ISWAP militants in the Musa district of Askira Uba local government area. The incident adds to growing concerns over a rising wave of kidnapping and violent attacks across the country, even as Nigeria and United States strengthen their joint security operations. WDR's Osman Omar reports.
The victims, aged between 15 and 20, were abducted on November 23 while harvesting crops on their family farmlands, an attack that sparked fear and displacement across surrounding communities. Security sources told WADR that the rescue operation was carried out over the weekend, with all girls safely evacuated to a military facility for medical checks and profiling before being reunited with their families. Although details of the operation remain limited, officials say local actors played crucial roles in securing their release. The rescue comes as troops intensify clearance operations in southern Borno State, targeting ISWAP cells responsible for recent abductions and attacks in the region. Across Nigeria, a similar pattern of violence has been recorded in recent weeks, from bandit raids in Niger, Kwara and Kaduna states to rising insecurity in the capital, Abuja. The federal government has attributed these incidents to a resurgence of armed groups exploring security gaps. It is against this backdrop that President Bola Ahmed Tinubu approved the formation of a Nigeria-United States joint working group to strengthen intelligence sharing, counter-terrorism coordination, and rapid response operations. For Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, Usman Omar reporting from Abuja.
The Senegalese capital, Dakar, is hosting the first edition of West Africa's major cultural event, Eco First, launched on Sunday by Prime Minister Ousmane Sonko at the Grand National Theatre of Dakar. The cultural event promises a spectacular range of activities, including art exhibitions, film screenings, and panel discussions. Jointly organized by ECOWAS, UEMO, and the Senegalese government, Eco First seeks to build a regional platform for the exchange of cultures to foster peace, regional integration, social inclusion, trade and tourism, among others. As Abdullah Hassan reports, the festival is themed Political Change and Crisis in West Africa. What culture do?
In her opening statement, ECOWAS Commissioner for Human Development and Social Affairs, Professor Fatou Sousar, underscored the importance of the EcoFest 2025 theme, Political Change and Crisis in West Africa. What can culture do?
The EcoFest 2025 is fully aligned with the 25-year vision of the ECOWAS, which aspires to an ECOWAS of people, peace and prosperity for all. This vision is based on the conviction that culture is an essential driver of social cohesion, lasting peace, and sustainable and inclusive economic development.
Senegalese Prime Minister Ousmane Sonko was warmly welcomed on stage to unveil the EcoFest 2025 graffiti created by 4 of Senegal's best female graffiti artists. Officially declaring the week-long activity opened, Sonko emphasized the place of youth and women as agents of cultural exchanges to stabilize the region.
Today, culture faces unprecedented pressures. Cultural homogenization, the hegemony of certain exogenous modules, and the marginalization of our local languages and expressions threaten the identity of our people. It is therefore essential to protect our youth from these cultural aggressions. We must encourage them to engage in the preservation and promotion of our values while cultivating their creativity. These cultural mechanisms, among many others, remind us of a fundamental truth. Cultural integration has always preceded political integration in West Africa.
Hundreds of people, including delegates, diplomats and government representatives dressed in colorful African fabrics, gathered for the opening ceremony at the National Grand Theatre. While artists like Baba Mal, Sidike Jabate and Yaki from Ghana made appearances on the opening day, cultural troupes from the West African sub-region will perform in the coming days. Film and documentary screenings, art exhibitions, and group sessions will be held on the sidelines of the regional cultural show that runs until December 7, 2025.
Abdullah Hassan filed that report. Let's travel to Liberia as the alarming rise in cyber violence against women and girls is drawing urgent attention and calls for immediate action. This renewed concern comes as the country joins the global community in observing the 16 days of activism against gender-based violence. Over the weekend, the Ministry of Gender, Children and Social Protection, in collaboration with UN Women and other key partners, officially launched the 16 days of activism alongside the National GBV Conference. Well, WDR's Monrovia correspondent Abraham Parker reports.
The national theme for this year's commemoration of the 16 days of activism is a strengthening coordination and sustainable action to end gender-based violence in Liberia. It underscores the urgent need for a unified and sustained approach to combat gender-based violence in all its forms. Since the campaign's launch, Julie Endy, Executive Director of the Crusaders for Peace, has been leading public engagements to amplify the message. Madam Endy emphasizes the growing threat of digital violence against women and girls, stressing that securing digital spaces is essential to empowering women and safeguarding their dignity.
And this dream is to see budget for SGBV, but at the same time prevention, involvement, national interest of women. And I think that some of the things that we do is not always rape. Sometimes you mentally torture, sometimes you verbally abuse people. It's the same trauma that you go through when you are abused.
At the same time, Vic June Roto, girls' rights activist, is sparking dialogue to do analysis of women supporting women, particularly within Liberian communities.
It puts women in a position to be stereotyped, like, oh, if you're not supporting your friend woman, you are a healer. Because an empowered woman, I believe, is someone who should be able to make an informed decision independently, and that decision should be respected.
Liberia's renewed commitment to addressing digital violence against women and girls during the 16 days of activism marks a critical step toward creating a safer, more inclusive, and equitable society for all. For Newslink on WADR, Abraham Parker, Monrovia.
Politics, analysis on major news, social matters, and all. This is a guest.
Well, this evening, we turn to a chapter of African history that is as painful as it is essential to remember, the Chari Massacre of 1944. For decades, this event sat in the shadows, spoken of quietly, often distorted, and sometimes completely erased from our collective memory. But this year, as Senegal marks the 81st anniversary, the country and the wider region is taking bold steps to finally confront and correct the historical record. Senegal rolled out a series of measures, from a national memorial to new school curricula that tell a more honest story. Today's conversation asks a critical question. What does true historical justice look like, not just for Senegal, but for an entire region whose sons were involved? Well, our guest is Professor Gorgui Dieng, Head of African and Pro-Colonial Studies at the Cheikh Anta Diop University, Dakar, Senegal.
Well, memory is very important, because if you don't know where you come from, you don't know where you're going to. So this is important for Senegal, for Africa, to know what they have gone through, the difficulty they have gone through, slavery, colonization, and this event, the killing of those soldiers from Africa. So it is important for the youth to know what has happened in the past, because if they don't know what has happened in the past, it will be very difficult for them to know what to do today and what to do tomorrow. So it is very important for the children of Senegal, for the children of West Africa, to understand what happened in the past in order to know how to behave with the Western world. Because this is something that should not have been done, and they did it to defend simply their own interests, forgetting about the interests of Africa, and forgetting about what those people deserved after fighting for France.
The Chari Massacre has long been described as one of the darkest episodes in African military history. Why did it take decades for Senegal and the wider region to formally confront and correct the historical record?
Well, you know, it happened in 1944, during the colonial period. So there was no, sovereign government in Senegal, no sovereign government in the other countries of Africa. So it was very difficult for the Africans at the time to have any, say in the business, in the issue. Now, from 1944 to 1960, it wasn't possible. And from 1960 up to the recent years, it wasn't also easy for African leaders to talk about this, because they had just come out of colonial rule. So they didn't really find their bearings, and in order to, lay the emphasis on this issue. Maybe it was something that was not central. There were other issues to be dealt with. So, for example, satisfy the needs of the people. And now, probably after those many years, the time has come for Africans to remember all this. But I believe that is also due to the fact that new regimes have emerged in West Africa and in Senegal particularly, led by young people and who want to emphasize on sovereignty.
Professor Gorgui Dieng is the Head of African and Post-Colonial Studies at the Cheikh Anta Diop University, Dakar, Senegal. Well, in sports, Nigeria's men's basketball team, the Tigers, fell to their second straight defeat in the ongoing FIBA World Cup qualifiers African window, leaving the former continental champions under early pressure as the campaign gathers momentum. The team, still in rebuilding phase, struggled to find rhythm in their opening games as they slipped 2 consecutive losses, dampening hopes of a strong start to the qualifiers. The back-to-back defeats now put Nigeria's Saturday's fixtures against Rwanda in sharp focus, with Nigeria needing a response to steady their campaign. A win for Nigeria will not only restore confidence but also keep their World Cup qualification hopes firmly alive as the tension later shifts to the next qualification window. We've come to the end of this edition of Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting from Dakar, Senegal. Thank you for listening, and many thanks to Mustafa Sek and Ismaila Kamara for the technical assistance. Do interact with us via social media platforms X and Instagram and Facebook, WADR English. We stream live at wadr.org. I am Sankule Janko. Good evening.
And many thanks to you for listening to Newslink via Hot 104.3 FM, Newmi FM 94.0,
Hilltop Radio 104.7 FM,
and Veritas Radio 102.9 in Banjul, the Gambia. We also appreciate our listeners in Liberia via Alternative Youth Radio 98.9 FM, Lofa County,
Radio Kagama 94.5 FM, Nibe County, DCN Radio 91.3 FM, Riverside County, Wakat FM Radio, Banga, Liberia, Radio Baf FM 91.3 Sierra Leone in Nigeria, and Love 104.5 FM Abuja.
For you listening via Radio Pad 95.1 Damango, Savannah region, and on Royals FM 104.7 Wenchi, Ghana, we say a big thank you. Remember, West Africa Democracy Radio is all about you, your views, and your opinions.